We want our people to feel strong, and a part of feeling strong is knowing how to be successful, knowing how to achieve goals, knowing what it takes to achieve goals, and especially understanding the importance of time.
We used to be canoe people. One of our elders, he would talk about how that was one of our main forms of transportation a long time ago, to get across the lakes and down the rivers.
That was our only mode of transportation. And the larger canoes are used for hauling commerce, hauling larger materials. And smaller ones are used for faster travel.
I mean, in the old days, the canoes were everything. That was transportation, that was our livelihood, that was food, that was trade, that was ceremony. The few times that the U.S. Navy bombarded tribes, they always talk about how they didn't just aim for people or houses, but they aimed for the canoes on the beach because they were trying to cut that lifeline or cut that chance of surviving through the winter.
The canoe is our true livelihood. The canoe kept us alive.
As far as records go for the Coeur d'Alenes and canoes, we don't have any kind of records, no written records, no photographs, but we do have stories.
Ultimately, its elimination came because we were removed from the shores of our waters, from the Coeur d'Alene Lake, from the St. Joe River.
We're stripped of our heritage. Our language is taken away from us, our land, our identity was taken.
One of the major ways they tried to incorporate us into modern America was to take us away from the water. The land we stand on is the only part on our entire reservation, 345,000 acres that we own on the water, that tribal members, kids can come and play.
When it got taken away from us, the way my great-grandpa says, a lot of those old people, they shed tears, they cried, and walking away from the lake. They moved down to the prairies and the Palouse, but their heart was always here,
The lake means everything to us. It's our world, how we sustain life. Without the water, we don't live.
Let's bring back our old craft. Let's bring back some of these canoes that we utilize on this lake. Let's relearn how to be on the lake in a traditional way. Let's learn the language associated with being on the lake. Let's do that. And let's bring all our children. Let's create programs around it. Let's bring them down to the lake.
The eagle belongs up there. He knows what's going on all over. But the canoe, he's the boss of the lake.
Interesting story about the origins of this log here. Before it was our canoe called Warch. It was a 700-plus-year-old red cedar from the Quinault Indian Nation.
Basically, we had to go and contact people that had knowledge of building the same types of canoes. We kind of have an idea of what types of canoes the Coeur d'Alenes used from different ethnobotanies that were written. Through U-Cut, there was a movement to bring salmon back up into our stretches of the Spokane River, and in an effort to do that, U-Cut commissioned the construction of multiple shovel-nose dugout canoes.
I was informed about a cedar log coming to the fisheries office. I said, I need to find a spot for it. And I said, what's the log for?
And we received a 45-foot long, 28,000-pound cedar.
The front end loader gives that log a push. It flops over once, twice, 3 times, and almost perfectly lines up to that stall where we need to put it in. Later on, I found out it's a canoe or a dugout. And they said, you want to be part of it? And I said, that's a silly question, Rabbit. I'm there.
That was the beginning. That was part of reviving canoes for the Coeur d'Alene people.
My dad told me that they were building a canoe. When we were out from school, I went up to his office and saw how giant the log was.
We had no tools, no knowledge per se on what steps to take first or where to start.
So we actually used the knowledge of some of our neighboring friends to come out and show us their style.
The Wellness Center was gracious enough to purchase some initial tools for us.
6 months of work went into the carving of the canoes. There's a lot of hands that went into the canoe. A lot of people put the time into that canoe.
John Zinder, the contractor, Vince Pione, and myself were the main three carvers on it.
John Zinzer, he was a big help. I mean, he has so much vast knowledge of canoeing, his carving. I mean, he's a super talented man.
A lot of measurements, just an ungodly amount of measurements. Center line, then the form. A lot of times we'd discuss, debate, a process or a technique or where to cut or whatever it took to get to this state.
It was such a huge task, and you don't want to mess up.
Oh, it was awesome, yeah. Just all the different steps, the big chunks we took out. And yeah, everything that we took out of it, we're still using it now. We're making paddles out of it. We're trying to use the whole tree.
The whole experience really brought their families together in a way they really hadn't been before. And I think that's nice. I mean, when you're a grandparent, being able to sit there with your grandchild, helping them build a canoe is a great thing. But that's also got to be equally as powerful for the grandchild, too, to take part of that.
Oh, what a difference it's had with my kids. My kids are all into it from the beginning. They did a bit of carving on it, too, you know, and we had better communication amongst each other than we had in years. Social media, it was gone for a while, and it was great because we got to actually get to know each other again, you know? When we were building the canoe, there was always this little frog, little bright green frog. He was always on a log, or through the process, he was always around, you know what I mean? Around the log, on the boat itself.
So we'd take it off and take it to the side and let it go, and it must have happened at least 5 or 6 times, and we decided to name it Frog, Warch, Coeur d'Alene for frog. The sturgeon noses and the dugout almost were parallel as far as timing.
When we built that first sturgeon nose canoe, and when our youth sang that honor song for that canoe, and we brought it to our lake, and we put it in the water, you could feel our ancestors welcoming us home. And when you sit in that canoe, and you smell the wood, and you're on top of the water, it's healing.
Shaping this 28,000-pound log was an amazing experience. Then we had to take it down to the boat launch and launch it and to test it out.
That was the first time in about 100 years they said that a tribal canoe has actually touched the waters.
Oh, yeah, everybody's holding on to the dock. How come what's holding it? Let go of the dock now.
We were all on this boat, first time we'd ever been on it, any of us. And the wind caught it and almost hammered the dock. And we just stopped it just in time so it didn't damage the boat or nothing, and we got lucky.
Everybody sitting down.
Well, the first time it was a little scary. And I've done a lot, but
being in a canoe was a completely different thing.
First of all, I kept feeling like I was going to fall in. I was just tipping back and forth, and I was just like, oh man, I'm going to fall in. I'm going to be the first person to tip a canoe, and and I didn't want to do that.
Let's get some guys out.
I'll get out.
Nice.
You guys gonna try it?
Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Stroke. Stroke. Nice and easy. Stroke. Together. Stroke.
And it was just amazing, just to be on it, the feeling, you know, just, wow, it's back.
As we got done, I had stepped back and bursted into tears. It was very emotional, the feeling of the accomplishment and just getting to do it and knowing we can do it again.
When I first saw it, I was like amazed, you know, is how beautiful it was, and I never seen anything like it.
We say indigenous all the time, but there's also an element of being like autochthonous, of the knowledge coming from the land, coming from the area. So I think in carving that canoe, I think people learned a lot. Like the log taught the community and taught the carvers about their culture. The sturgeon noses taught people how to make them and then how to paddle them and then how to be on the water. The canoe itself could be a teacher.
We had a very good group of people, probably 150 to 200 people. The drums were going, very good words were spoken.
From a log that large, these men made the commitment for what we have today on this water. Give these guys a round of applause. Thank you.
When I'm here, looking at those canoes, it's just like becoming a teenager. Good for the mind and heart.
A little teary. It is almost every time pushing off and landing. I believe it's the spirits of the water and the spirits of the land. You know that they're looking at you right at that second.
I didn't build it for myself. I built it for the help with the community. It was a very spiritual, emotional event happening. And so I take more joy in seeing somebody else paddle it than almost I do paddling it. I knew a lot of these folks that helped, and I seen it change them in a good way. And that was very special too, to see the pride, ownership, almost like a breakdown of a barrier, if there was one.
We went on a first journey, which was a huge experience for me. Like, I learned a lot of stuff from everybody there, from different tribes, and I learned how to bond with my dad and siblings again. It was like really cool.
It allowed me to connect with my family that was from over in Lummi in a way that I wouldn't have probably been able to do through powwow.
I kind of feel like a dolphin, but I can't make the dolphin noise, but I felt one with the water. And it felt really good.
It was a pretty special event for everybody, and that day I brought Felix to the blessing, and the whole way all he did was talk about how we used to have canoe races and journey across the lake, and so he would talk over and over and over about how we need to redo that. We need to revive the canoe races.
A lot of the coastal tribes of the Washington, Oregon coast, they still do canoe races to this day. They've been doing them for the last 200 years.
And then he started talking to me as though, hey, this is, kind of your charge. You need to do this. And of course, I'm not going to tell Felix no either. And so I made that my mission to see if I can help support that.
And so immediately I started asking youth in this area, I was like, would you guys like to be part of a canoe team? And of course, they've never been around canoes. They haven't touched a paddle. They didn't know anything about it. So I told them, I will bring you guys to Lummi Mother's Day weekend, and I'll show you what canoe races are like, what the atmosphere is. I took 3 youth with me over there to go check it out. And as soon as they saw canoes hitting the waters and they saw how intense things were, they were really excited. And they were asking me, how come we didn't bring a canoe? How come we can't get in there and race? I was ecstatic. I loved the feeling that they were ready to do this. I knew that this was going to be something that's going to start snowballing. I don't expect to have a lot to begin with, but I imagine that this program is going to expand and grow the tight-knit family that you have when you get to go out and do canoe races. That's a way that these kids can come and bring things together and settle differences and push things aside. Ultimately, it teaches them about accepting one another and trusting one another.
You throw in the passion of people, community members, people that are striving to understand and know and connect with their identity as Coeur d'Alene tribal people. You're going to go a long ways, and that's what we've done. We've gone a long ways because of that.
We've just been traveling with this all across the Columbia Basin and then over to Standing Rock. One of the neatest experiences was pulling in when we all landed together. And I believe it was the coastal tribe that asked us to do it their traditional way. And we paddled up to it and had to ask permission to come ashore.
Very high honor for me to be here.
With love and honor and respect, we ask permission to come to shore.
One of the things that was said that honestly almost brought tears in thinking about it was they thanked us, the canoe people, for coming to help fight the horse people's battle. Just hearing that coming from them up shore was a pretty amazing moment.
We come from the Coeur d'Alene tribe, Northern Idaho. When we stood across the mountains and seen the trouble you guys were having, the issue you were having with the water, it was very, very close to our hearts. Our water still bleeds from the destruction 130 years ago, from the mining that was done in the headwaters of our rivers. The most powerful thing for me is gathering together with the other tribes. And just for that short little window, we get to camp out for nights. Everything else is forgotten. We just sit there, tell stories, build relationships. We get to live the closest we'll ever get to live in a traditional life.
Obviously, we're still in the early stages, but what we're doing is developing a vanguard with this canoe culture, that we're getting all these different people who've been on multiple journeys, who are trained up in a way, and now they carry that knowledge and they carry those stories, so then they'll be able to be teachers.
I know we have a lot of work ahead of us, recruiting, training, and it's not going to be easy. We might lose some interest along the way, but I know that there's going to be a strong foundation with all the people that we have involved.
I have probably paddled right around 250 miles.
Hundreds of miles. We went hundreds of miles on this canoe, and my kids are right there.
We have a really incredible canoe community that exists between the different tribes right now, where they all kind of know each other. They have Facebook pages and sites where they communicate with one another, and so they do a really, really good job of keeping that momentum going. 7 generations down, I mean, I'm going to be dead, and hopefully this stuff will, continue to have its own momentum that won't require me or any of us that are here working on this stuff right now.
Yeah, I'm hoping to make a canoe myself. Me and a couple other guys like Jeffrey and James will be racing in canoes.
My plans are to hold this tradition, continue it with our future children, I'm young, but, with future generations, that'd be nice.
Our ancestors were forced into decisions that weren't theirs, and that's the reason it disappeared. It would be irresponsible and show lack of respect to our ancestors if our children didn't feel the camaraderie and build on the steps that we build. I mean, we're in the infancy stage of it. I want to be able to come down here when I'm an old man and see these kids when all I can do is cheer on from the shore.
I believe it's bringing the community and the tribe itself closer to the water, and it's a great tool to actually start respecting the water a lot more. And for the future, for the youth, they'll be involved with the water a lot more, and hopefully they'll want to protect it.
When I come to the lake, it represents health, holistic health. I come here, I run, I jog, I bring my kids, we go swimming. I tell them to respect this lake, it's our relative. That pride that's within us, it just makes it that much more.
What I hope happens with the canoes is that we get more people involved and we have a bigger crew.
That's pretty impactful to continue on a tradition that was almost forgotten, that was almost let go. The language, canoe making, basket making, using cedar, everything that we used to do is being revived, piece by piece, bit by bit.
To have the canoe again is, I don't know, it's almost like if these people were to give our land back, how that would feel like, or if your newborn baby, that kind of feeling is just such an amazing rush and fills your heart.
Felix, used to talk about how the role of the canoe was really to connect us with this beautiful lake that we have right here. We have a canoe, we have a special language for being out on the canoe, but ultimately what it does is it helps us interact with our environment in a way that you really can't from the shore.
Paddling in the canoe turns you back into a native.
Making the canoes, I think that spiritually we're awakening. I personally, being in that Sturgeon's canoe, I felt connected to who I am as Shishichums, who I am as Insokchin, Ahamchin, and I've never felt that.
The canoe has come back to life. It's bringing us all back to life. We're here together. This is true culture.
This canoe, it was practical in the day. That was our transportation. But in this modern day, it has began to put its arms around us and move us back to the water. We're water people.